Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Ad Astra Kansas Money Talks podcast. I'm Joe Blubaugh, joined by Mark Johnson and Bob Schwartz of Bob Schwartz Financial. And they have offices in Victoria and Silver Lake, Kansas, and you can find out more about them at bobschwartzfinancial.com. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we'd love it if you could give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And same thing, if you're catching a podcast from your favorite podcast provider, we'd love for you to join us every week. So today we have a fun episode with something that we've talked about but not done up to this point. We've got a couple of scenarios that we want to see if we can stump Bob on. So Bob's been doing this for about 50 years, and Mark and I have some cheat sheets here. Bob only has specifics about financial specifics about two fictional couples that are looking to retire, and we're going to see what Bob thinks and see if these folks are able to retire. So, Mark, maybe you could tell us a little bit about couple number one.
All right. Couple number one is the Whitakers. They are 64 and 62. They're married for 35 years, and Brian is an IT manager at Boeing, and Carol is a nurse practitioner who works part-time. Their financial snapshot. Their assets are a home that's worth $475,000 that's paid off. Brian has a 401k that's a little over $1 million. Carol has a 403b worth $330,000, and both those are traditional money. They have a combined amount in Roth IRAs of $190,000, and their brokerage account is worth $290,000, and it's mostly in dividend-paying equities and some bonds. Their HSA, they have $35,000 in HSA, and their savings account currently has $40,000. They also have an inherited rental property that's worth $275,000 and generates about $1,500 a month. Their liabilities. Their liabilities are none. They paid off their mortgage 5 years ago. Their pension and Social Security. Brian has a pension as well, $2,000 a month starting at 65. Carol has no pension. Their estimated Social Security benefits are Brian gets $3,000 a month at 67. Carol would get $2,100 a month at 67. She plans to claim that at 64. So the last thing is insurance they own. They both have term life policies that expire at 65. They have a long-term care hybrid policy with $200 a day benefit each, and Medicare Part A and B, Medigap plus drug plan already in place. So are these guys ready to retire?
There's one thing missing. What's their annual income? Pick me an annual income.
I not put that.
Let's see. If he's an IT manager, I would say he's probably making $150,000.
Yeah.
And she's working part-time, 2.25?
Yeah, I would say total 2.25. Sounds like a good number.
Thank you. These guys are doing great, you know. First 30,000 foot flyover they're in a great position. One of the things that jump up first is he's 64, she's 62, and they're going to go ahead and retire. And I think they're thinking right if they wait till 67 to take Brian's income. So how are we going to bridge the income of $225,000 a year? So that's going to be $20,000 a month. Let's just say that they're going to spend. First of all, 48 years of doing this. I've had one client that spent $25,000 a month, and they saved about 15.
Yeah.
You know, over time. So the one thing I know is the Whitakers don't need as much in retirement as what their income is, but that's what we're going to target. So we're going to try and generate $20,000 a month, of which $18,000 of it plus his pension's going to start in the next year. So I'm gonna just say $40,000 out of the $200,000 is going to be generated by the inherited rental and the pension. So they're going to have to come up with $160,000. Well, again, doing the flyover, they've got 1,770,000 plus 200,000, 1 million. They got $2 million in assets with the savings accounts. They've got invested assets of $2 million. So if we pull out 160,000 a year, that's going to be a 8% withdrawal rate. Unsustainable. I want to say that up front. You can't do that for a lifetime, but for 2 years, that's not going to be an issue for them. And in 2 years, they can start getting another 36,000 a year. So we're going to knock their withdrawal plan down to $125,000 a year, and then take another. It's going to be end run. That when Brian turns 67 and Carol is 64 and takes it, we're going to be needing $100,000 a year, and we're going to have conservatively in excess of 1.5 million left. So 120,000 a year for the rest of their life is sustainable income, and they're not going to spend 20,000.
No.
Yeah. I mean, even in LA, if you got a home paid for in LA, how much more are you going to spend than here? 20%?
Probably.
At
least.
Yeah. I mean, their property taxes, I'm sure insurance is higher, and I'm sure taxes are higher because you're insuring a higher valued property. But the key thing for this couple is deciding where they're going to spend their money from in retirement. Otherwise, are we going to, I'm going to encourage them to take money out of their IRAs, and get some taxes paid on those while they're retired and their income's down a little bit. And also, we're going to look at doing some, some adjusting of that income to take tax advantages for the next 2 years.
Do you think there's any Roth conversions that they need to do, or do you think they should just leave it all?
I'm on the side of the coin of you're going to pay taxes on it one way or the other. So if a client says, "Boy, I want to convert to Roth," I'm not. You want to say, it's probably a good idea. Let's look at where you're going to jump to the next tax bracket. And let's do that much each year. Yeah. But if the client's ambivalent about it, I'm going to say we're not going to convert any of it, and we'll just take money out every year as we can fit it in tax-wise into your budget, and you've got a lifetime to have that money come out. Are taxes going to go up? Yes. Now, 48 years, we've been saying that for 48 years. We've been saying two things in my industry that are BS, and that is taxes are going to go up because they haven't. Number two, Social Security's going away. Yep. Those are the two things my industry has made a living on that are not true. Our taxes today are lower than they were 50 years ago when I got into this business. Mm-hmm. So taking the tax break was an advantage. Now, do people have more money today? Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. But these guys are in great shape. If they want to go to a Roth IRA, I'm all for it. But if they're ambivalent about it, my recommendation is going to be stay the course, and let's be judicious about converting some.
I want to talk about the real estate in their portfolio. So they've got a paid-off house. We don't have enough information. We assume they're going to stay in that house, for the next foreseeable future. They also have that rental property, $275,000, generating $1,500 a month. Now, I'm assuming we're making the assumption that that's the net after taxes and
that's a heck of a rental, as we all know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at what point do you? I'm sure it's client dependent, but at what point do you start to think about selling an income producing property, or do you?
One of the things I took notes on was what was the basis of the inherited rental property. Because it got a stepped-up basis when they inherited it. So if it's worth $275 today, and that's what they inherited it at, it might behoove them to sell the property. But if it is actually generating $18,000 a year net, and requires, I mean, that's net after maintenance and taxes and insurance. I think our recommendation would be to keep it.
that.
Yeah, because that's I can't do that in my head. 18,000. That's a net probably 6%, 6.5% return, and
That's a pretty good return.
Yeah.
And real estate is one of those investments that allows you to diversify even further. And
Right.
my opinion, if you do it right, real estate is a great place to put your money.
Yeah, well, and you've done the show with us enough, Joe, that you know that my thoughts are between bonds and real estate. I'm going to vote for real estate every time, whether that's ag real estate or rental property. I think it's a great place to have. So, yeah. And now let's use another example. They're getting $1,000 a month gross rent, and insurance and taxes run $500 a month. So they're netting $6,000 a year, and it's worth $275,000. And they're getting a phone call once a month, and they hate that. I'm probably going to say, hey,
Right.
you probably need to sell that and go have that money work for you, where you don't have to put any sweat equity in it.
Very good. Well, are we going to move on to couple
Yeah,
number
let's
two?
do
Or
it.
got any other final questions?
How'd we do?
That was the softball ones.
Yeah.
I think you did pretty good.
Yeah. The conclusion that, just to be clear here, the conclusion that Mark had wrote down was that they are ready. Minor tweaks recommended for tax efficiency. I think you nailed that. And some estate planning. So, yep, I think you nailed it.
Yeah. So
All right. Let's move on to the Parkers.
Yeah, Parkers. Okay. Jason is 60 and Dana is 58. They're a little younger. They've been married 25 years. Jason is a regional sales director, and let's say his salary is $150,000 a year. And Dana is a high school teacher, and let's put her salary as $58,000 a year. Jason is burned out and wants to retire now. Dana says she might teach 2 more years. They want to downside and possibly RV for a year. Their home is worth, I'm in the back here. Okay. Nope.
It's worth $425,000.
Yeah, 425. Jason's 401k is in traditional. It's worth 640,000. Dana has a 403b worth 220,000. They have $75,000 combined in Roth IRAs. They have $95,000 in a brokerage account, mixed growth stocks, and some more speculative stocks. They have $12,000 in savings. They have an $18,000 in HSA. They have an RV fund that's in a separate brokerage, and they have $30,000 in that RV fund. Their liabilities. They still own $110,000 on their mortgage. They have a car loan that's $18,000 at 5.9%, and they're carrying month-to-month $6,500 on a credit card. Pensions and Social Security. Dana's pension is $1,200 a month if she waits 2 more years. Jason has no pension. Social Security, Jason's going to have $2,800 a month at 67, but he wants to claim at 62. Dana is going to get $2,200 a month at 65. Insurance-wise, they have a high deductible employer plans currently, no long-term care insurance. Jason has a small whole life policy, $25K death benefit, and Dana has $250,000 term life ending at 60. And that is...
One thing we didn't mention, the mortgage is at 3.5%. So.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Pretty low percentage rate. Very typical of most Americans right now that
Yes.
have interest rates locked in at those low rates.
All right. So, what sticks out to you, Bob?
No.
Yeah.
Jason and Dana are not ready to retire. And here's the other thing about our industry that I always find very unique is our industry likes to tell people they can retire. because we want to tell people what
They want to hear.
they want to hear. And Jason's burnt out. I think my conversation with Jason, and I guess we should say for this example, is we're talking about a couple that has a lot of retirement ahead of them. Could easily be longer than their work life, and they want to do that on $860,000 plus $300,000 equity in a home. So basically a net worth of $1.1 million. They need to clear their debt. They need to pay off their credit card and the car loan. The house at 3.5%. It's not free money, but it's okay. There's nothing wrong with 3.5%.
Yep.
The RV fund, $30,000. That's a down payment.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if they want to travel around the country, and I've had clients do this, they would have to sell their home to generate the money for the RV, and then the expense of, I don't know what it costs to park an RV. I saw where somebody traveled the country for a year, and they averaged $17 a night for parking their RV. That sounds low to me, but maybe they parked it. You can park at Walmart for free, so I don't know. They need to hammer his 401k. But okay, so I've given you all the bad things. Okay, now I would say to Jason that if you're burnt out on your job, you need to go find another job. You need to go reinvent yourself, which is retirement in America today for people my age. Is they retire and they just have reinvented themselves.
Right.
They don't quit working necessarily,
Yep.
but they go do something that they have a passion for.
Yeah, so there's we went through a time where it was the FIRE movement, financially independent, retire early. And a lot of that has changed now to now they call it FINE, financially independent next endeavor. And I was thinking the same thing as I read through this. If Jason is burned out, and maybe when we talked about this in another episode at one time, maybe it's you start into a slow retirement phase where maybe you do stop working full-time and you work part-time and you start to ease into retirement as well. So there are some options there for somebody who's burned out in their career.
What do you think, Bob, about this whole? It seems like a lifestyle clash in my mind. Of Jason wants to go and RV across the country. Well, it seems like Dana still wants to work, and that's a conversation that's tough because it seems like Dana is still enjoying her career and her profession. She's 58.
Yeah. And she seems to maybe because of that comment have a little better handle on their money than he does. Definitely, like that car loan, $18,000. That's at roughly 6%. That's probably a $700 a month house payment or car payment, and the credit cards. Let's say you think they're paying $1,000 a month or $500 a month. At $210,000 a year in the state of Kansas, you should have no credit card debt.
Yeah,
I think we'd all agree on that.
Unless you're living an incredibly lavish lifestyle.
Yeah. Or you have no ability to control your habits.
Yep.
So if they got rid of those, you'd probably free up $1,000 a month. And if they hammered their house payment and got it paid off, which you could do it, $110,000, they could do that in 18 months. They'd have to be on the Dave Ramsey super secret plan, but they could do that. Well, then you're putting yourself into a position that, hey, we could maybe buy a used RV, keep our home, travel the country for a year or two, because you're going to burn out on that.
Yep.
And then you got a place to come back to. But if you have to sell your house, okay, and we go through another 5 years like the last 5 years in Kansas, where real estate's really climbed, and you come back in 3 years and, okay, we sold our RV for half what we paid for it, and we're going to go buy another house. Oh my goodness, they're up 40% from what they were 3 years ago, and you are in bad shape the rest of your life.
Well, and not only that, your 3.5% interest rate that you have on your current home is now a 7% interest rate on your new home.
Yeah.
So there's that too.
So-
the thing that I also focused in on was the Social Security, because Jason says he wants to take his Social Security at age 62, and you can make the argument for or against but they don't have large retirement accounts. And in my mind, if I don't have a large retirement account, I probably need that secure income to be higher throughout the rest of my life. So I focused in on, is that a good idea to take that at age 62 based on what they've managed to save at this point?
Because of Dana's pensions, she has one, but it's not fantastic.
Yeah.
Our recommendation to Jason would be not to take his Social Security till he's 70.
Yeah.
Let it grow.
Yep.
Absolutely, because then that takes, that helps Dana in case he passes away. She's younger than him. And there's a lot of flaws in Jason's thinking. And here's the sad thing. A lot of time a dreamer, a guy that wants to go, they're hard to turn. It's hard for them to face the facts, but you have to face the music, and unfortunately, the music's not rock music.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, this couple is actually in a fairly decent position compared to many Americans, but just not at a point where they can retire at this stage.
Great income. They've got some money saved up in their investment portfolio. I call these tune-ups. They need points, plugs, condenser, and the little transmission work, because we've got to get debt out of their life and things like that. But it's not too late for them to turn the corner. It's they can have a wonderful retirement. And that's the other thing that let's say Mark is sitting with them by himself. They would say, the reason Mark, I can't say it because I'm already at that age, but they've got plenty of time. I mean, I know he's sitting there thinking, I'm 60 years old. I want to travel before I get too old. That's all changed too. I'm 74 and we still travel whenever we can. And, they got plenty of time to travel. They need to fix their money.
Yeah. I wrote down some things, some options for if they would find a way to retire. And you've already knocked on almost all of them, which is really good. But the ones that we already talked about: delay Social Security, increase future income. Jason does part-time consulting instead of just being like done. Sell their house, downsize, and invest all that equity that they had, or cut spending $1,000 to $1,500 a month, or delay retirement by 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
You think those are all?
I think they're spot on.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to say, when I had a couple that retired and started traveling the country, and they stretched they kind of overbought on RVs. But what they did was they were camp hosts, so they kind of found their passion at RVing year round, but they would go to like national parks and be camp host, or state parks in Kansas when they'd come back. But, and they did that until one of them passed away. Which was kind of interesting because that's how they subsidized. They got to park it for free, and instead of driving, they'd go to a destination, park it for 2 months. And did he have to work? He always said he worked about 2 hours a day. So You know.
Let's keep it busy.
I was going to say, and you brought this up, reinventing yourself, and it made me think that we are in such a gig economy. It's not hard to be on the road and finding something that you're passionate about that you can, even if you're just making a small amount of income, it can really make a change in your financial outcome.
And if you're working 2 hours a day sitting at a laptop, or you're working as a camp host or just whatever, that's 2 hours a day that you're not spending money.
Good point.
You know, which all falls in there. And yeah, I think you're spot on with what you said there.
And then the last thing I wanted to focus on before we wrap this up was debt and debt in retirement, because once again, that's my own personal feeling is, mortgage aside, when you're locked in at such a low rate, it just doesn't seem like retirement and debt is a good combination.
No.
I'm in.
Not much to say there, huh?
Here's one of the things. We do a lot of work with ag producers. And one of the things that will make me, in my head, alarms go off, fire bells and whistles, is we bought some ground. Oh, did you borrow to buy the ground? Yeah, but it was that 80 next to us. And I get that. We all want to own everything next to us.
Right.
But you reach a certain age, let's say you're 70 years old, and you create $300,000 worth of debt that you're going to pay for off of the profit that you make off of your other farm ground. That's money that's your retirement money that's going over to pay for that. So what's that mean that Paul and Ma are doing? That means they're working longer. Debt and leverage can work fantastic for us in the building years when we're building our businesses and when we're building our farms or whatever it is we do, buying homes. But there comes a point where it becomes a poison pill. And Joe, you and I've talked ad nauseum about debt, and we're both on the same side of that coin.
Yeah. Well, very good. Yep. Gentlemen, very fun episode. I think that it proves that retirement's not a number. It's really individual. Every person, every couple, it's always going to be a little bit different. It's so individually specific. And it kind of brings up the point that if you're looking to retire or thinking that maybe you are wanting to retire, it might not be a bad idea to reach out and talk to folks like Bob and Mark, and they would be glad to help you, go over your numbers to see if you're at that point. So thank you for joining us again for this episode. Once again, BobSchwartzFinancial.com is the best place to find contact information. Gentlemen, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Mark and Bob, thank you very much for your time today. Yeah. Everybody, thanks for joining us. Have a great day.
See you next week.